Well, hello, and welcome to the Tea with Tea. Today, I'm going to be talking about conditioning and how difficult it can be to uncondition yourself. Pretty much from birth, we're conditioned to believe certain things and believe that life is a certain way and that we have to live a certain way. But that's just not true. The reason why they work so hard to condition us is because the power we truly hold is uncontrollable. If everyone understood the power that was within them, they would have no control over us whatsoever. So they implemented the education system, which is less of education and more of just teaching you how to conform, how to sit down and shut up, raise your hand, wait to be called on, pretty much to comply. They're teaching you how to comply. So that way when you enter the workforce, you just do what you're told because you know you need money to pay your bills. And you've already went through years of conditioning to teach you to comply, so it's easier for you to do so at that time. Not only do they condition us to live a certain way and to believe life is the way it is, but they condition us to be okay with seeing certain things happen. The Epstein files are a great example. They condition us with things like this and many things before it so that we get used to things like this happening. Yeah, the first few days, the first week, maybe even the first few weeks might be a little hectic with people being like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. You know, some people protesting or what have you, depending on the actual topic. But after that, it dies down because we're all used to this nonsense. We're all used to the crazy stuff happening. We all know that bad things happen and the severity of the things is just increasingly worse and worse, but they've conditioned us to be okay with it instead of actually doing something about it. Instead of, as a whole, as humanity, standing up to the 1% that are causing these things. They've conditioned us to believe that we hold no power, that we can't do anything about it, that these things are just what they are and we just kind of have to deal with it. And yes, as individuals, that's true. Me, just me being me, has no impact on changing any of those things, any of the negative things. Me by myself, I can impact other people's lives around me in my community, but the world as a whole, as an individual, I'm limited. But humanity coming together, even just within a country, if everyone in the United States, because that's where I lived, came together and stood up against these negative things, these 1%ers who control everything, they would be cooked. It would be over for them. And they know that. And that is why we are conditioned the way we are. They know that if we all realize our power and how strong we are as a whole, that they wouldn't be able to control us anymore. That they wouldn't be able to just live life however they want anymore. They wouldn't be able to just do whatever they want. They wouldn't be able to fiddle little kids anymore because we wouldn't have it. We wouldn't stand for it. We would not allow it. But because they've conditioned us pretty much since birth to believe that we have no power because we're all individual, we never do anything about it. We just let it be the way that it is and say, oh, dang, that's bad, instead of actually realizing that if we came together, even in communities, but as far as full countries, just coming together and standing up against the people who are doing this, they would no longer be able to do it. And people are like, oh, well, I have bills to pay and whatever. We need to prepare for it. Like, the only way that it will work is if we are prepared. You know, save up money, pay some bills in advance, get a few weeks worth of food, and then just do nothing. Don't go to work. Don't buy gas. Don't buy groceries. Don't buy anything. Don't use Amazon. Don't go to any big box stores. If you have to shop, go to farmers markets and locally, you know, not these big box stores. If we all collectively as a human race, whether it be just a community or a whole country or the whole world, if we all did this, they would have no choice but to change something. They would have no choice but to do things differently because we demand it so. The thing is, we've been so convinced that we work for the government when really the government is supposed to work for us. The government is supposed to be for the people, when in fact, they've made it to where the people are for the government. Even as far as politics goes, where they separate us, you know, red and blue, independent, whatever you identify with politically, which I do not, but they separate you that way as well. They make you think that you have a choice. They make you think that something different could happen if you chose a different candidate. When in actuality, it's always the same. No matter what candidate you choose, no matter what side they are on, it's always the same. And that's done on purpose. They know what they're doing. They're making you feel like there's separation, for one. They're also making you feel like you have a voice by voting, for two. And for three, they make you think that if you choose this candidate instead of this one, something will be different, when in fact it won't. Maybe little things like the cost of gas. Little things like that might be different if you choose a different candidate. But in general, things are going to happen as they may, regardless of who's in office, regardless of what face they put to represent our country. Things are still going to happen just as they planned it to. Because the thing is, all these things that happen, whether negative or positive, everything that happens has been planned out years before it happens. Like, yeah, I'm sure there are some things that just kind of happen, but they have so much control that they already know how everything's going to go for, I mean, God only knows how long. They could have the next 50 years, 100 years planned out. Does it mean it'll go exactly according to plan? No. But in general, however they plan it is how it's going to be, no matter who's in office. Really, the only solution, in my opinion, is as humanity, as US citizens, and if other countries, feel the same way, they should do this as well, is to come together as the human race. Doesn't matter what color you are, doesn't matter where you're from, what you look like, it doesn't matter. We are all human, and we should really come together and live more like communities like we used to. The financial system is a crock of shit. The Federal Reserve, not only is it not federal, but it's also not a reserve. It's these systems they put in place to make you think that life is the way that it is, but really they're just saying that that's how it is, and you're just going along with it. That's it. You are going along with it. That is why it is allowed to stay the way that it is, because we all go along with it. And if we all just came together as humans and stood up against those people, things would really change. Yeah, it may sound crazy. It may sound however you want to make it sound like it won't happen. It 100% could. It 100% is possible to stand up against these people who control everything. But we allow them to continue on the way they are by feeding into their system, by doing everything the same, by not doing anything differently, by living the way that they tell us we need to live. And I mean, I'm guilty of this myself, of course. Like, I'm able to speak on this from a level of awareness, knowing that this is how the world is and that there could be a solution if us as humans came together. I also know that I live in this world where if I don't conform in some way, I'm going to be homeless. I'm not going to have anything, So, of course, me saying this isn't saying, well, I'm doing this, I'm living this way. No, this is what I want. This is what I want to see humanity do. This is what I want to see the world do. Stand up to these people who control everything. It's like people who don't protest. They just watch things happen and don't take any action. They're just as guilty as the people who are doing the bad things. And I don't believe they're just as guilty. I believe they're guilty in a different way. Because I have never been to a protest. I was convinced out of going to a protest back in 2020 when everything was happening with George Floyd. They were protesting in my city, and my ex, she convinced me not to go. She convinced me not to go to the protest, and I stayed up. I can't even tell you how long I stayed up. All night I stayed up watching the news of the footage of the protests, just feeling like I should have been there. And would me as one individual done much difference by being there? No, probably not. But it's not about that. It's about the morality. It's about standing up for justice. That's what it's about. And not even down to individual situations such as George Floyd or any of the other people who have been wrongfully, I don't even want to get into that, but not even down to the individual situations, but as a whole. When all those freaking people stormed the White House, like, that should be proof enough that people who are on the other side of that can do the same thing. And they say, oh, well, if it was people of color, it would have ended very differently. It's like, yeah, okay, it probably would have definitely ended differently, but not in the way that you think. Because they're not about to just bomb the White House because people of color wanted to raid it, just like all those white people did. Yeah, they would probably most definitely handle it much differently, but they're not just gonna bomb the White House because people of color and people who stand with people of color wanted to storm it just like those other people did. It's all about mindset. It's all about how you see things and what you think we're capable of as a whole. Honestly, it doesn't even matter what you think you're capable of as an individual, because when we come together as a whole, our power, depending on how many people are involved, is immense. It's on a level that you can't even measure. And so if we just came together and fought against this shit, we could make a change. And people have been preaching this for decades. All the peaceful protests, all the people who have preached peace, the hippie era, people have been preaching this. And we're still not listening. We're still living the same way, even worse so. Now we're living in an economy where 30-year-olds, me being one of them, I'm almost 30, have to live with roommates because they can't afford their own place, because they can't get a job that will allow them to get their own place while paying for their car and all their other bills. Like 50 years ago, although there was still conditioning, the actual standard of living or ability to live on your own was so much different, was so much better. It's like we went from being separated by class and gender and all that, which, don't get me wrong, there is still all of that, but it was a lot worse back then. You know, women were treated less, couldn't have bank accounts, couldn't vote, all that kind of stuff. Slavery existed. Now, instead of slavery in the way that we learn in school, instead of slavery in the way of I own this human and they live in my house or on my property and work for me, instead of slavery like that, we allow the slavery. We sign up for the slavery. We go to these jobs, we apply to these jobs and say, yes, please make me your slave. Like, we just allow it now. And instead of one human owning another human, it's now a company owns you. It's no different. Yeah, okay, you can have your own house and your own car and all that stuff, but I'm barely going to pay you enough to be able to afford that stuff. So honestly, it would make more sense just to go back to the way slavery was. It don't matter what color you are a slave for whoever you work for. And it would make more sense to live on their property and not have to have a car because you live where you work. You would save so much more money. You would have so many less problems having to worry about the maintenance of a car. And I can't even believe I'm saying all this right now, but it's true. It's true. Like, if we really think about it, like zoom out and think about how similar we still live to how it was during slavery. It's just, it doesn't matter what color you are anymore. All these white people who owned colored people, now you're the same people that are slaves. So now what? But they would never admit that. They would never see it that way. Oh, I'm not a slave. I have free will. I choose what I do, and I get to choose my job, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you do get to choose your job, but you're still signing up for slavery. You're still signing up to sell your time for little money that hardly allows you to live any sort of real life. And people are proud of that. People wear the American flag like it's their identity, as if they're not slaves to America or the United States. It really blows my mind how patriotic some people can be, living the way that they do. Oh, I love my country. We're the best. We were the first to go to the moon, and we don't kill our own. We don't kill our presidents. We don't do any of that. We love our people, but yet we don't actually love our people. We do actually kill our people. We lie to our people and don't allow our people to live, only survive. I will never be supportive of that, ever. And honestly, to the point where homelessness seems more ideal than being a slave. And this is speaking as someone who has been homeless before. So I've experienced it. I know what it takes to be homeless and what it really means. And I am saying that I almost would prefer being homeless than being a slave. And give me a little bit more time. I might actually, because you see all these people posting on social media about how they live in their car and stuff, and they really just post videos about it and they make money that way. Like, imagine being homeless, living in your car and posting about it, making money, and then not having to be homeless anymore. Imagine that. Like, just that would be honestly amazing in my opinion. And people are going to think I'm crazy for saying this, but I really don't care. I'm so tired of this system. I'm so tired of being tired. The whole point of the system is to exhaust you enough to where you're continuously willing to be a slave. And people can say whatever they want, but I have the awareness to see that this is how life is. And I truly hope that you all watching this do too. And that all the people who would hear this and disagree will wake up. And we live in a time where more people are awakened than ever before, but we're stuck. And it almost feels like torture. This is where I struggle. I'm aware of how the world is and the control that we're under, but I feel so stuck in the system because I've been conditioned to believe I have to live my life a certain way in order to survive. And that's another reason why I bring up being homeless, like allowing myself myself to be homeless, because it's like I remove myself from that system and I can build from the ground up that way. There are truck stop showers I can use. You know what I'm saying? Like, there are ways to survive being homeless. And it's crazy that at this point, after over a decade of being in the workforce, of being a slave to the system, I'm like, fuck it. I'm just gonna go live in my car so I don't have to pay rent, because rent is killing me. So I don't have to live with anybody else. I'll really just be on my own. Even though it'll be in a car, I'll be on my own. You see what I'm saying? Like, it really just depends on what you're willing to sacrifice. And at this point, I'm willing to sacrifice everything. I'm willing to get rid of everything and just keep a suitcase full of clothes. Even I have like a bin of memory things from like high school, my yearbook, shit like that. And I'm like, fuck it. Honestly, none of that. I haven't touched that shit in, I mean, over, oh, probably almost a decade. Honestly, it just sits in a box. It's like, what's the point of keeping it? Honestly. Oh, because you might want to look back on it one day. I really don't. My high school experience sucked, and I don't want to go back to that. I've worked through all the things that happened to me as a teenager and have accepted it for what it is, but that doesn't mean I want to go back and reminisce on it. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I flip through my yearbook and see all these different people and events that don't bring me happy, like, nostalgia, why would I want to do that? I don't. So I'm like really willing to get rid of everything at this point and just live in my car and hope for the best. Because not having to pay rent, the amount of money I would be able to save by doing that, I could really get myself out of the situation that I'm in. That's so much money I could save every month. But we're conditioned to believe that making a decision like that is crazy. And maybe it is. But maybe, just maybe, it'll be what changes my life forever. Maybe it'll be what allows the people around me to really wake up and see what life really is. To see that I'm willing to put myself in this situation so I can remove myself from the system. And maybe it'll wake them up to see, like, wow, the fact that she wanted to do that, maybe I'm really missing something. Maybe I'm not really seeing the world for what it is. Or maybe they'll just be like, wow, she's really crazy. I'm sure there'll be plenty of people who will think that. And I'm not saying I'm going to do this. It's just a thought. Like, it's relieving kind of just to think of doing that. And it's also just an example of how extreme it really is. And I know there are a lot of people out there who could relate and maybe are afraid to actually take the step that they want to take, or question where they are in life and the decisions they're making based on what they've been conditioned to believe. And maybe this video will help them actually question it, or take that step, or learn something new so that they can get themselves out of a situation. I don't know. All I know is that living life the way that we're taught to live is exhausting, and it's soul crushing. My soul feels starved, and I know so many other people out there can relate to that. So whoever's with me, let's go buy a piece of land and start growing our food. Live in tents until we can afford to, or are able to, build ourselves houses. Because that's the thing, when you buy a piece of land that's full of nature, you can build with that nature. And even if you don't want to go that far back, you know, living on your own piece of land, even in a tent at first, will allow you to save up more money to be able to buy the things you would need to build the kind of house you want. You know, we could have a well, live off well water, grow our own food, all that kind of stuff. And that just sounds so much more peaceful than this life, than how we're living now. Anyways, I've gone off on a complete tangent, but all of this comes from being conditioned, being programmed, and I'm done with it. And I hope that humanity will be just as done with it as I am very soon, so we can truly make a change. Anyways, I would love to hear what you guys think about all this, about the world and the state we live in and how we're slaves to the system. Tell me your thoughts. Tell me what you think, if you're still here, of course, because I know I just kind of went on a tangent. Anyways, yeah, let me know. I'm interested to hear what my community thinks. As always, I love you, love yourself, and let's grow together.